Welcome to Enough Talk, where we get real about what's happening in California and beyond. It's unfettered, it's unfiltered, it's unapologetic, and it's about time someone said it. I'm Alex Balekian, and I'm here to give a voice to your frustrations, putting ideas over identity and action over talk. With me today I have Aneta, a Glendale local, mother of two, and candidate for the Glendale Unified School Board in Area E. So let's get right into it. Aneta, welcome.
Thank you, Alex. Thanks for inviting me.
Thank you for coming. So what is your number one thing that you've had enough of?
My number one thing that I've had absolutely enough of is the indoctrination that's occurring in public schools and the lack of transparency that we are receiving from school districts when, as parents, we are asking questions and we are not getting any solid answers. So, for example, it would be one of the things that my main concern has been some of the books that we found recently in elementary schools that focus on gender identity. And it took the longest time to get any answers. It's like nobody knew how those books got there. They don't know who put them there. So as a parent, very frustrating. We keep getting the runaround. And I think their hope was, let's tire them out. And eventually they're just going to stop asking questions. And we're just going to sweep this under the rug and just, pretend it never happened.
And how do we fix that?
Well, how we fix that is, as locals, we have to realize that we do have a voice. I do understand that a lot of people have been discouraged to vote. They feel like it makes no difference when they vote. Me, for example, I realized that in order for me to make a difference in my own child's school district, I would have to run for school board, specifically in Area E. That's where the elections will happen, in Area A and E, and I'm in Area E. And I've been advocating for years, and the lack of transparency I'm receiving, the unfairness, the discrimination, the rudeness, I would say, from the district and certain board members. It was just my mission that now I have to represent all the voices that are being unheard. I have to represent my community and all the parents that are fighting, yet nothing's being done. And when I realized that there's no representation absolutely at all on the current board, and parents like myself who go there and speak, who have meetings with board members or the superintendent, and we raise concerns, it's like we don't exist. It's like, oh, we hear you. We're just not going to do anything about it. So I decided I have to run for school board. There is nobody right now in our area, especially my area, where there are a lot of new families from Armenia, Ukraine, that don't even understand the language yet. So there's a huge language barrier, and there's nobody representing them. There's nobody in a transparent way explaining what's going on, what the concerns are. So it just became kind of like my duty that I have to do this. It's not an easy task, as you know. I'm not a politician, I'm a mom. So entering this world of politics and campaigning, it's just been this like whole new world opening up, and it's not a pretty world. So putting yourself out there is we could just be coming home, enjoying dinner with our family, watching some TV, and enjoying time with my kids. But I've placed myself in this situation where I have to advocate for thousands of voices because there are innocent children at our district where there isn't enough representation. I would say maybe very little representation, people advocating for them within. So that's how I would see to fix it, at least one step closer to having someone advocate for the voices that are completely being unheard right now.
You touched on 2 points that I want to delve into more. Number one, you touched on people not being engaged.
Yes.
And then you also touched on you stepping out of your comfort zone and doing this. So let's talk about the first one. I tell people, or when people say, how did things in California get like this? And I said, we were all asleep at the wheel.
Yes.
So when did you wake up? What was it that woke you up?
So I would say 2020, along with a lot of people that I've talked to, was the time that I completely had this wake-up call. I voted for Obama. I was a registered Democrat, and I wanted to be part of the movement. I wanted to be part of the change that Obama had promised America. And I was young. He was actually the very first president I ever voted for, because before that I wasn't of age. I mean, does that even matter these days? Who even knows? Anybody can seem to vote these days. So I was constantly falling for that propaganda. But once I became a parent, I got married, and then I became a parent, and then my perspective of the world started changing, and I noticed the politics behind a lot of things, and I as well was discouraged. So the following elections, when the media was pulling us left and right, Trump versus Hillary, I was very, I didn't know. I was confused. I was like, I've been tricked once before. Why would I vote again? I've been so, I just felt like my voice didn't even matter. And like my vote went to a president that ended up not representing what I expected him to represent and the changes that I was so hopeful to see for our country. And I just thought things were just on the decline. So I have as well been not been encouraged to vote. So I get it. I get people's frustration. They just want to just pull themselves away, and they feel like ignorance is bliss. If I just ignore it, I don't let it get to me, I'm just going to live my life. But every little decision that's made, especially politically, is affecting all of our lives. Everything from school board member to city council to Congress to president, every single position. It's not that people should just vote for, prime elections as far as, is the presidency elections. They should vote for every single election and vote for people that actually are going to represent you and hold them accountable, So 2020 was when I woke up, and I was like, this goes against everything that I've grown up. I grew up in a very conservative household, but I thought, maybe we're too conservative. Maybe we're too much church going and so on and so forth. But in 2020, when I realized how the world was being treated because of the pandemic, and then how I saw that me advocating for my child to be able to go to school, exercising my rights as a parent. You mean for the school closures? Yes, during the school closures. So that constant fight and battle, and the level of discrimination we were getting, I was being called a privileged white supremacist. Meanwhile, I was born in Armenia. I don't understand where that title comes from, but anybody who disagrees with the specific narratives that get pushed through mainstream media, all of a sudden you're an extremist, you're a supremacist, you're this and you're that. So 2020, I realized, wow, we're in a battle for our lives. It's fight or flight right now. And right now, what I was witnessing was the most vulnerable during 2020 were children and the elderly. And a lot of times what I found is when the other side has no coherent points to argue, name calling is really the last resort that they have. Exactly. Having a conversation with people who are having a hard time themselves accepting the truth. So they start to name call, they start to insult, and they start to just go the low road, I would say. Because even those people that I talked to, whether it was on Facebook, arguments and disagreements in person, at stores, whatever it is, I realized that they were having a very hard time accepting reality, and they were having a hard time realizing the effect that the pandemic, school closures, all these political games, propaganda, they didn't want to admit it. It was safer for them to stay in that bubble and say, oh, I wasn't a victim, I wasn't fooled, but we were all fooled. You know, I myself in the beginning was like, okay, we all have to be shut down and this. And then after, 2 weeks turning to 2 months, 2 months turning to 4. And then now we were like a year and a half into the pandemic and kids aren't able to go to school. In 2021, when I was advocating for kids to go back to school, there were tanning salons open, the liquor stores, tanning salons. Everybody was back to business. Everybody was leaving the house except for kids. And as a parent, it was like, whoa.
Why do you think businesses were allowed to open, but schools remained closed? Who do you think influenced that decision?
I 100% think that the teachers union influenced that decision. I witnessed the contracts back and forth between the teachers union and the district, using our children as political pawns to negotiate their contract agreements, money, their days off, just, it was a battle. And our children were used as the pawn of that battle and as families being pulled left and right. Meanwhile, as parents, we can't do anything. Mm-hmm. We're just sitting back, even if we're not trying to sit back. I wasn't a parent that sat back. I was constantly trying to, push my voice into board meetings, emails, and contact teachers and contact district employees and, have a conversation. But it was like, yeah. You just sit to the side. Your voice doesn't matter. We're dealing with contracts here. So I would say that the unions all across California played a huge impact on schools reopening. They played a huge impact on masks.
You mean not reopening?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. You mean staying closed?
Yes.
So would you say the
staying closed.
teachers unions helped facilitate reopening of schools in a timely manner?
No, they didn't. Absolutely not. Every little step of the way, we had to fight. We had to throw their own hypocrisy in their faces. The same teachers who were saying, it's unsafe, we don't want to go to work, you guys want us to die. I mean, that's how extreme their, rhetoric was, as far as like saying, oh, parents don't care about our health and this. We're like, well, that same teacher I'm looking on Instagram is traveling to Europe, going to Halloween parties, and I'm like, wow, these hypocrites. And then what was the breaking point for parents was I don't know if you guys remember the Super Bowl, where we had all of our politicians and, celebrities and all these people that went to the Super Bowl where Rams were playing. And, it was an amazing show. The halftime show was like epic. Everybody was watching it. And 70,000 people, no masks. And they're like, oh, they're outside. No, those 70,000 people also go indoors to use the bathrooms. So they go indoors to buy concession stand items and so on. So the hypocrisy was just so in your face. And it was like, I can't take this anymore.
But was there a downside to keeping the schools closed? I mean, didn't the kids learn the same way or the same quality of education, though, when the schools were closed?
No. That narrative that they constantly try to push, I would say, is evident at the way that kids were struggling when they went back. They're still struggling today. Mm-hmm. Some of them are so behind. I know kids that were left back a year. Their own parents decided to keep them back a year because they're like, my child's not ready for the next grade. Right. I myself have a whole list of emails that either I or the teacher sent to the class because of internet disconnection. Everybody's trying to be online, trying to log into Zoom. Everybody's using the Wi-Fi in the same area. People working from home, kids logging into Zoom to go on class. And there's like multiple times where we had no connection. We couldn't connect. Either we would have internet issues or the teacher would have internet issues, and hours would go by where our children are not getting any kind of education.
Right. And me as so that was a loaded question that I asked you. Yeah. I know. we know quite well that the test scores were declining, but they were also declining even before this pandemic hit.
Right.
And you can see that very transparently on the state websites, the Board of Education, the Department of Education, rather.
Yeah.
And also just in public health research, lower education leads to lower socioeconomic class. Lower socioeconomic class leads to poor health outcomes. So whom were we trying to protect? Did we really end up having better outcomes? Or do you have these children now who are less educated, who aren't going to hold down good jobs?
Yeah.
And we know in the medical literature, at least, that leads to worse health outcomes. Yes, people didn't die immediately, but then long term, did you really improve things for the greater good? I want to pivot and ask you, so tell me about that first time where you had an encounter with a book that you thought was questionable, and tell us some details about that.
So I had heard that there are some questionable books at schools, and, it was hard as a parent to even volunteer. For a very long time, the doors were shut in our faces. I would say I never even saw... Well, I can say I never saw the inside of the classroom of my child's first grade class from beginning to end. I never had the opportunity. So I never had the opportunity to go into the library or volunteer. There were still a lot of COVID restrictions. So for a while, I thought, my child's school, I know a lot of the teachers, I know the principal, there's no way there are books like this. So I was one of those people that was ignorance is bliss kind of thing when it came to that. But then I found out that there's a public website where the district has to provide, where you can locate and you can search. It's a search engine for all the libraries, their directories. So I decided to go into the list of my child's school. I typed in gender, and I searched, and a bunch of books popped up. And I was like, is this just like a reference guide? Is this really what's inside their school? And then I started, Googling some of these books, and I was like, this is outrageous. How can they have this at elementary schools? Like one of the books that I've always talked about was I Am Jazz. That person had, gender issues where the parents publicly displayed this child and the difficulties that she was going through with her gender dysphoria, I want to say, and her transitioning. I don't even know how to address it because everybody gets so offensive whenever you use the wrong pronouns. But it was a boy child, right, and they transitioned to a girl child, and it was blatantly displayed. And then lo and behold, now there's a book on Jazz Jennings and Jenkins. Is it Jazz Jenkins?
I'm not sure.
You're not sure?
That's like nine trans people ago.
Okay.
I can't remember all of them.
Okay. So that book is age 3 and up, and kids can read it and look at how a little boy turned into a little girl. And in the middle pages, the parents take the child to a special doctor, and they find out about transgenderism. And I was like, why? When kids are right now struggling with the ABCs, 1, 2, 3s, you have 4-year-olds at, TK level, and this book is being presented to them. It's, then I started digging, and I found out that, wait a minute, this book was donated to every single Glendale Unified Elementary School. And then there was a list of books that were donated. And whenever, as a parent, I would ask, how did these books get here? Oh, I don't know. Let me look into it. And then I had to have 4 meetings with the principal to have 2 of the books removed, because one of them was not even elementary level. Mm-hmm. So she herself was like, why would this even be donated? And the better question is, it was donated in 2019. Why didn't you know this book is in your library?
Right.
And then the other one was, she considered it as a reference guide that she would keep in the front and use whenever, if any family needed additional support within that community, then they can use that book as a reference guide. But there were words in those books, like the one, The Children's Guide to Gender Identity, talks about transgenderism, cisgender, so on and so forth, telling kids that they can pick a different gender than the one that they were assigned at birth, because now gender is assigned at birth. You're not born
Right.
a boy or a girl. Your parents are picking your gender. The doctor is picking your gender. It's bizarre to teach this to kids.
So just from a devil's advocate standpoint, so let's say your 5-year-old goes and finds that book in the
Yes.
library and then talks to the librarian or the teacher and says, oh, I read this book, I'm a boy, but I think I might be a girl. Wouldn't that be a great segue then for the teacher to discuss that with the parents if the child then says that? Wouldn't that be a great, icebreaker, for example, of things that you may not know how to broach with your child, but then the child talks about it to the teacher, and wouldn't the teacher talk to you and kind of loop you into the conversation?
I don't think it's any of the teachers', excuse my French, damn business what my child is internally going through. The teacher can report it to me, and maybe people will disagree with me on this. Let me know. My husband and I will talk to our child. We will seek out the doctors and therapists that we deem necessary, that align with our views, or, it's not like parents don't have resources. And so, sure, there might be some people who might need that help, but to automatically assume that, I have to put myself in this situation, like for a teacher, a admin, district employee, whoever it is, to automatically assume that they have to be the middleman between a child and a parent, that's like, take a step back,
But also, are there any laws or state regulations? Do you think a teacher would be forthcoming to approach a parent if they did that? Is that what the climate is right now?
That's not what they're doing, though. They're talking to the child in secret.
Right.
And this isn't just like, I want to say, it's just happening. No, it's happening all across the nation. If people are not realizing that, then they're still asleep.
Right. And so, as you were saying, right, if that comes up with your kid, you and your family are willing to tackle that. You and your family are willing to deal with it.
Absolutely.
But now the teachers aren't telling the parents.
Yes.
They are not being partners, they're being partitions.
Right.
And that doesn't work for anybody, especially the child.
Especially the child. To assume that the child isn't in good hands. If a child comes to a teacher, anybody at school, and expresses that concern that, hey, I'm a boy, but I think I might be a girl. And for any adult at that school to think that they're the proper person to talk to this child and, hide it from the parents, for what reason? The parents are unsafe people or they're bad people. Then let's look at it from every perspective. What about, I'm a type of parent that is very strict with grades, and my child ended up getting an F in history. Is the teacher going to not send the report card home because this parent is so strict? They're just like, by the book, you better study, you better get A's, or you're going to be grounded, you're not going to go to prom. So what is that teacher going to do? Hide those grades? It's a serious matter, because grades reflect upon college acceptance. And I know some families are very, very, strict when it comes to grades. So what is the teacher going to do? Oh, too bad. Your parents have to know you're getting an F. Go deal with it. Because it's the parents' right to know what's going on with their child. So why is this specific, when it comes to gender identity, being hidden from parents? All of a sudden, parents are the bad guys? They're the dangerous ones? If there's any dangerous parent, that kid shouldn't be going to that house, and social workers, and people should be intervening regardless of what the situation is. But to automatically assume this is the only topic that a child is going to be in danger of, it's like, come on, we're not stupid here.
Agreed. All right. So, Aneta, you discussed also about you getting out of your comfort zone. So a lot of people ask me, Alex, why are you running for Congress?
Yeah.
And I tell them, number one, it got to that point where I had had enough. But also, number two, it just so happened that my work schedule was actually decreasing, and I was going to have more free time, and I was really happy to spend it on leisure activities.
Yeah.
And then Adam Schiff decided not to run for the first time in 22 years and left the seat open. So I said, okay, this is a confluence of factors. What was it for you, or what things were it for you that caused you to come out of your comfort zone? So why don't you tell people that, so that they say, okay, this is the gal that I'm going to support?
So a lot of people don't know this, but, I am running for Area E. Prior to me deciding to run for Area E, my family was ready to move out of Glendale. We were going to put offers on 2 different houses we had seen in Pasadena. I grew up in Pasadena. I love Pasadena. And then just the connection I've made with people, but my husband grew up in Glendale, so his heart is in Glendale. The connection I had made with so many parents, the amount of messages and texts, DMs I was getting, hey, we heard you're in Area E, how come you're not running? I had to explain my situation to so many people. And then there was this one night where, we're sitting with my family, we're watching TV, and then somebody texts saying, hey, are you for sure not going to run because so-and-so, somebody I've never even met, is thinking about running in Area E. And it's like this overwhelming emotion came upon me, because if we lose that opportunity to win that seat, we lose an opportunity to have one of our voices represent us on that board. So I just felt this immense responsibility to the people I had connected with throughout the couple of years that, lived in Glendale and then moved out of Glendale and then came back to Glendale. And specifically in that area, the families I had met, I just felt like it was my duty. If I leave, who's going to represent them? Who's going to help them? So many parents have relied on me for answers and for help, whether it's texting me at 9 p.m., my child doesn't understand the project, I can't read the instructions, can you help me? To something as far as, what is this board policy and how does this affect us? So whether it was a little help that somebody needed or something big, people realized that I was a source that they could go to. And honestly, it's an honor to have that kind of relationship with people, because not only do they see you as a mom, they see you as a community member who's, willing to help out regardless of what kind of help it is that they want. And, people approaching me saying, you're doing God's work. You're helping so many parents and families and kids who aren't able to come to board meetings and talk the way that you do, and bring some attention to some concerns that we have, we just don't know how to address. So it was this responsibility. I felt like it became my duty that I have to do this, because I can easily not do this. I can go and live in another area in Glendale or in Pasadena or, neighboring cities that my family's ready to, take that next step. But I talked to my husband and I said, is this something we can, do as far as stay close to the people I've connected with, our people, our community, our, friends, families, the children my kids go to school with, and run for this race, hopefully win, and have some decent representation. Currently, right now, whoever is sitting for Area E, she doesn't have kids. So as much as she might, in a kind way, try to be relatable to parents and say she understands us, she hears us, she doesn't. She doesn't know what it's like being a mom and facing all this difficulty. Before I even announced that I'm going to run, I've already had so many people coming after me. The opposition, I would say, doxing me, making websites on me, coming to my child's school, putting up pictures of me and other people that have been advocating for parental rights, putting up flyers all across schools and all across different neighborhoods. So there's this big threat, I would say, that I want people to understand this is not an easy task that I've taken upon myself. And I definitely need the help and support of the very community I'm fighting for. So right now is the time. It's either step up and do something, whether it's vote, whether it's volunteer, but whether it's donate, whatever way you can contribute, whether it's your time or services. I'm just one mom trying to make a difference for 25,000 kids in Glendale. And I'm definitely going to need that help. And for people to realize this isn't just something I'm doing for myself. It's actually opposite. I'm keeping my family back from a certain, journey we were going, the next chapter of our life, because I just cannot disconnect myself from the people that live in my area. I can't do it. So I have to represent them.
And you've frankly had enough.
Yes, I've absolutely had enough. I've had enough for myself. I've had enough for the people in my area where they have no voice. And I've had enough of all Glendale kids, even the opposition, that they don't realize that their own kids are being used in this propaganda. I want to protect all the kids. Leave your politics at the door. We've had enough of it. Enough is enough with pushing your propaganda, your ideologies into classrooms, and just let these kids learn basics, math, English, history, art. Just let them be. Enough of adults fighting each other, enough of using these children. They have a struggle ahead of them preparing for their future. They don't need this in their life. They really don't. So it's enough already.
And I just wanted to remind everybody listening and watching that Armenians are very good at complaining. We are very good at doing close to nothing as far as being inactive and having things happen to us. And then when it gets to that point where we've had enough, we say, okay, change this now.
Yes.
That's the expectation.
Yes.
But this is not going to change immediately. It can change quickly, but it's not going to change immediately. So I just wanted to reinforce to people listening and watching that you need to vote. If you don't like the current situation, the only way you're going to get it to change is by voting, electing people. Right now, there are 2 out of the 5 seats that are up for grabs in 2024 March, correct?
Correct.
So that is still a minority, 2 out of 5. The next election 2 years later, if you vote somebody similar, then it's a majority, 3 out of 5.
Absolutely.
So this is not going to change overnight, but these changes have been occurring slowly.
Yeah.
And they're going to be reversed slowly.
Yes.
I want to touch on something you said about people doxing you, about going to your child's school, putting photos of you. Who are these people? Do you know them? Are they obviously out, or are they hiding behind some sort of cloak? Tell us more about that.
We have our suspicions. I have filed police reports because I want things on record. I have met with the head of student services at GUSD and put it on record. A few things I want to touch base on is the fact that when I was trying to make my website for my campaign, multiple domains were already taken. Instagram pages were already taken in my name. Gmail accounts were already taken in my name. So the opposition smelled, something like, wow, she's a threat. We need to make these websites. And mind you, this is months before I've even announced. And putting up my picture left and right, I would say it's the same 2 to 3 people. And I know who the lead is. I won't mention this person's name. She is also a Glendale parent. I would say this person is pretty much obsessed with stalking my pages, and put online on one of her Instagram pages and on her website where my kid goes to school. And then the very next day, they had flyers, specifically the lane that I use, because, it's a big school and it's surrounded by all 4 areas. There's cars lined up for drop off, and the lane that I use to drop off my kids. So it was like, how psychotic is this person that they're even watching to see what lane I'm using, which drop off I'm using to put up pictures right in that area, even to the neighboring businesses. And so it was, some people didn't see it. Some people did see it. I know other parents went and ripped it off because they're like, this isn't something children should be exposed to, or like, stress them out. My kids saw it, and my husband was the one who was dropping my kids off that day. And they asked him, they said, what is that? What is that? Is that mom? Because the picture, you can't really even recognize that it's me, but it's like some weird face I'm making. And it's not the picture that's the problem. It's the wording that they put, that I'm a harasser of teachers, I'm a harasser of students, and all this fake, doxing statements that they're writing on there. And of course, their websites, their QR code, and so on and so forth. But, whenever it's a battle that we're having online, I've seen those websites, weeks before. But when it came to my child's school, that's where I was like, wow, these people will not stop at anything. They have no limit to their desperation of what they will do to people. A mom, who is putting herself in a situation to go and advocate for kids, is now being targeted in a very dangerous way. And not only me, my kids. I'm like, what's next? I told the police department, I said, what's next? My house, where I live, where my kids go to their after school activities, where my family members live. I'm like, when do we draw the line? Because right now, I don't think they're, honestly taking it as seriously as they should. I'm going to say that. And one thing that I found very ironic about this whole situation was the flyers that they're putting up. I don't know if you've seen the trans and pride flag. If you put 4 together, it makes the swastika shape.
Yep.
I've seen some people post that. I myself have never held up that sign. I've never posted it. I've never advertised it in any sort of way, yet it's being placed on flyers. And that same swastika sign is being placed on GUSD schools. It's being placed on gates where kids go to school. There was a teacher that got removed from the boardroom, and they told him either put the sign away or you're going away, because he was there to make a speech about how you put those 2 signs together and they make, you put those flags together. And honestly, I don't know what his speech was going to be. I didn't get to hear it. They pulled him out, or they pulled the sign out. I don't even know exactly the details. All I know is they made a huge deal about him having that sign. Yet this sign of which is a hate sign, having like a swastika or something. They said it's a hate sign. They're putting that sign on GUSD school walls where children are seeing it, and the district is doing zero about it to avoid it. So we're not allowed to have that sign in a boardroom where adults are present and holding it up in whatever content that they are doing it in. But you're okay with children seeing this sign, what they are saying is a swastika being placed on GUSD walls, and it's in black and white, which the original swastika is in black and white. It's not in colors. So it's just like the hypocrisy again kicks in of the, you can't do this because of who you are, but, it's okay because the other side's doing it.
Right. And I just want to, again, remind the listeners out there, Aneta is not simply an advocate for things that you believe in. She's also a shield for everybody, because you are taking the arrows.
Yes.
You are taking the shots.
I am, yeah.
And that is, I just want to reinforce to people that you are not just espousing beliefs, you are protecting others.
Yes.
At the forefront, taking
Yes.
those arrows.
Right.
So that the message gets through.
Correct.
So I wanted to talk about the Galas event. Galas, Gay and Lesbian Armenian Society, had a fundraiser, which is fine. Video came out of some of our school board members and other people supporting the event. Event uneventful. However, there was a striptease.
Yeah.
A striptease involving a traditional Armenian dance, a woman's dance with a daraz, the traditional costume, which started out, as it would culturally enough, and then progressed to a striptease. Give me your thoughts on that. Do you have any reactions? What did you think?
I was horrified. I was shocked. I could not believe my eyes and my ears that people were actually cheering for this. It's appropriating women, tradition Armenian women, our ancestors who are wearing the same type of outfit. That was our clothing. And during the genocide. I'm having a hard time talking right now because it's just, and I'm not one to be lost for words. I've seen the galas events before. It's never bothered me. I really don't care what people do. I've never posted about, oh my God, they're having this gala. I don't care what adults do in their, they want to have a nonprofit, let them go for it. They want to do this and that. They want to have fundraisings, so on and so forth. But to see a man in drag strip down a traditional Armenian woman outfit that I would wear to when I went to cultural Armenian dance, and it was our heritage, and we were taught with the beautiful braids and the traditional clothing and the delicate hand movements we would do when we were at dance school. The entire Armenian tradition, a lot of our, culture is based on the dances, the music. And for it to be mocked in that way and be brought down to striptease, let's reverse it. Let's say he was wearing a hijab or something else. There would be an outrage. I bet you Nairi Nahabetian, who's a school board member currently, wouldn't accept that if they were trying to appropriate any other culture.
The Tongva people.
Yeah, exactly. So how dare you guys sit there, eat your kebabs, and cheer? And, it's just mind-boggling that these are the people representing our district in our city, because Suzy Abajian was there too, the city clerk. No outrage.
And what for the non-Armenians watching and listening, I went to Armenian school, private Armenian school, and you learn this at some point. The boys get dressed in the boys' costume, the women get dressed in the women's costume.
Yes.
This is a very traditional, very non-sexual dance.
Yes.
The women and the men do not dance together. The women dance in a line. The men do their acrobatics. The women's costumes all the way to the wrist is covered. It is a high neck. Right. There is no plunging neckline. Right. This is a very non-sexual, very traditional dance. And my point of contention is not necessarily the drag queen. It's the striptease, because you could have had a buxom blonde who just tore everything off. It could have been Kim Kardashian, for example, who went over there and just tore everything off and is just wearing a G-string. That would still be equally shocking. Yeah. That you would associate this very traditional, non-sexual kind of dance with something so sexual. Drag queen or no drag queen. Right. Would you think the same?
I actually agree. It's a very good point you make. I think it was just more in our face and more of an insult because it's a man appropriating a woman, regardless, even if it was a woman, like you said. Thank you for pointing that out. It's a perspective I didn't even see it as because it was just so in our face. Either way, it doesn't matter who's doing it. Even if it's an Armenian woman doing it, like you said, it's just so disrespectful for what that traditional outfit represents and why they would wear those outfits. Those women, our ancestors would wear those outfits, like you said, completely covered. We were and are a conservative and Christian nation, Armenia. We were the first Christian nation. So to disrespect and then degrade our culture in that fashion, while these people are, and then this man comes up and throws dollar bills. What the heck am I watching right now? Is this really happening? It was outrageous. Up until that point, it was like, we don't care who these people are, what they do, just like they don't care who I am and what I do in my life. But if I did something that was offensive to another group, of course they would come after me.
And when you say these people, so I am those people, right? So you're talking about gays and lesbians, right? So I am gay, right? I am a gay Armenian. And so I also just wanted to not necessarily play devil's advocate, but to tell people, number one, the parents, right? All the parents. I'm not going to say all 100% of the parents. Yes, you're going to get some closed-minded, homophobic parents, right? But the overwhelming majority of parents have stood shoulder to shoulder with me and have accepted me in the fold. And what I want to remind people, these parents are being discounted, being called homophobes, anti-gay. You know, I am not anti-gay, and I don't want this shock to get lost in the message. We were shocked that something so traditional was paired with something so sexual, drag queen or no drag queen. Yeah. We are against the current curriculum in our school that focuses on extraneous things, not because of the extraneous things that they're teaching, but because the basic stuff that makes children educated citizens is not being taught. And we have test scores that show that. So, we are advocating for our culture. We are advocating for our children, and our message shouldn't get lost or shouldn't be so easily discounted if we just kind of stay on point and say, we are prioritizing test scores. We're prioritizing educational preparedness. We want smart children who are going to be the leaders of the future. Right.
Yeah, I agree. It's people think that you're automatically anti-gay or homosexual. In one of my speeches that I made at the boardroom was, I don't care what kind of sex is being discussed, gay, straight, lesbian. Why is it being discussed? What does it matter? Why are we bringing this into the school?
And even if it is, why are you not involving the parents? Right. So that they can also speak to their kids on their own terms in their own homes.
Exactly. Whether we like it or not, everybody is entitled to their own ideology. The way that they raise their kids is their business. Do I agree with a lot of things my own friends and families do? The type of businesses they may possibly have or the way that they raise their children? I don't agree 100% with everyone. It's a matter of respect each other, but don't cross the boundary. Whatever you normalize for your child as far as, certain things, then I'm not going to get into detail, like certain businesses, let's say, right? Then my family doesn't think that is the type of way we want to make money. Nobody should cross that boundary and that level of between a parent and a child. I teach my kids, be kind, be respectful. If somebody does something, they play too aggressively or they talk a certain way you don't like, whatever it is, it's okay to not be friends with them. You don't have to be mean to them. You can't be mean to them, but it's also okay to not play with them. If you don't want to play with that child, that's okay. You can play with another child. There's 700 other kids at that school you can play with. So don't get into altercations where you're insulting. Don't accept insults. If somebody plays a game you don't like, they're breaking the rules or they're not breaking the rules, whatever it is, just be mindful, be respectful, but you also do not have to follow certain ways or ideas or break the rules like those other kids are. Don't be intimidated or don't think that you can't stand up for yourself, because we all come from different families,
right,
and we all teach our children different ways. Some are, tolerant, some aren't tolerant. But at the end of the day, when kids go to school, they have to be respectful towards each other. And I feel like that respect is being lost when teachers or principals are disrespecting my family values and trying to push agendas or ideologies when I'm sending my child to school to learn the basics and to get a proper education, not for your propaganda, political views, any ideology whatsoever to be pushed upon my kid.
And also trying to usurp your role as a parent.
Yes, exactly. I think we would have a lot of problems go away if we left politics and disagreements at the door and we had classrooms only concentrate on important topics and important subjects that our kids can benefit from. Then you wouldn't have parents fighting each other. You wouldn't have teachers fighting the parents, parents fighting unions, so on and so forth. It's a very simple fix. Is it going to happen overnight? No, because you have to have people to actually agree that it is a simple fix and put those boundaries in place, which they don't want to, because, they have political aspirations. So they don't want to take that step and be like, you know what? This is causing too much division within our school district. There's too much chaos, too much division, and it's stressing families. It's stressing students. Let's do better. And they're not doing that.
Speaking of division in school districts, let's talk about a very divisive individual. Gray James, formerly known as Jennifer Heaslip. Tell me your thoughts.
I have only seen pictures, and I had seen, board meetings where this person would come and participate. I had no idea they were actually volunteering on school campuses.
So yeah, Gray James, as you were saying, is an individual who is affiliated with Crescenta Valley High School, brought in as an artist,
right?
To showcase artwork. Fine. Gray James also almost exclusively paints naked boys with erections.
Right.
One of the paintings is called Jerk Off Boy.
Yeah.
And it's a person with a slight build with an erection. And the majority of these paintings are of men with an erection. I think one of them actually shows the penis ejaculating.
Right.
And what people also don't know is Gray James is Jennifer Heaslip. Jennifer Heaslip is a woman. She has essentially transitioned to a man. But what I also want to clarify is that Jennifer Heaslip has said, as Gray James, I am a gay man, meaning Jennifer Heaslip is attracted to men.
Right.
Jennifer Heaslip is a straight woman. Jennifer Heaslip is a straight woman with mental illness who has wanted to be a man so much that she took hormones to change her body. So Jennifer Heaslip is actually not LGB. Jennifer Heaslip is a straight woman with mental illness. So my question to you is, when you said volunteers are being fingerprinted,
right?
Me as a physician, any hospital that I apply for privileges, I always have to answer the question, do I have any untreated mental illness that will affect my work?
I see.
Have you as a volunteer in a school had to answer any of those types of questions when you're being around children?
No, I've never had to be. They were more concerned about seeing a negative COVID test than anything else, I would say. And Gray James is not a parent. I've mainly seen only parent volunteers at my child's school. I haven't at our specific school seen anyone so adamant to get in and volunteer and talk to kids that's not a parent. And I feel like Gray James did have an ulterior motive, because in one of the recordings, I did hear Gray James saying, if you want to get anything done in a city, you have to go to the schools. So it's straight out saying, I'm targeting the kids. I have to put myself into the schools in order to make conservative Glendale more gay, so to speak. If you look at the history of Glendale, I think a parent had pulled public records. There have been, I believe, 2 hate crimes reported as far as it goes to LGB in 10 years. So this, narrative that, conservatives are anti-gay, they're homophobe, they're this, and then they're that. Clearly, the records are not backing that accusation. I know that there are a lot of conservative families who, unlike me, they're not lenient to the idea of, there being people that don't follow the way that they live their life, which is perfectly fine. And they're very, hardcore set in their ways of what a relationship is and what a marriage is and what a family is. For those people, there's no leniency. There is just a straight, line. But even then, we don't see violence being portrayed on the streets of Glendale. So why is this person, Gray James, so dedicated to come into our schools and push this ideology? Because it's like, okay, they're too conservative. We have to change that. Why is us being conservative bother you?
And I think a lot they're doing it under the guise of, California law says that you need to teach children equally about people of color, about minorities, about LGBT. And then they bring in people like, Gray James is a gay man, when he's not actually a gay man. He's actually a straight woman,
right? Yeah.
Who changed herself. But I also just wanted to touch on, for example, the books with Harvey Milk, for example. What was Harvey Milk's contribution to San Francisco Municipal Code? He passed one law that says that people need to pick their poop up after their dog.
I didn't even know that.
Yes, that's the only law that he wrote, and he got killed not because he was gay, but because one of the other supervisors on the board of supervisors was upset with him on a zoning law that he was going to vote for.
I see.
And what I tell people is, if you want to have, gays who have contributed to society, Alan Turing, World War II, brilliant English mathematician. He invented the computer. He invented the computer to crack the Nazi Enigma code. So Alan Turing single-handedly changed the course of World War II because he broke the Nazi code, and we were able to understand all of their secret communications. And we were able to intercept any offensives that they were going to do. And this man turned the tide of the war from the Nazis to the Allies. He happened to be gay. When he was found out to be gay, he was tried and convicted of indecency. He was made to take hormone blockers, puberty blockers, essentially.
Wow.
Developed depression, killed himself.
Wow.
As a result. I think the children would be better off learning about Alan Turing, right? This guy helped us win World War II. This guy was a brilliant mathematician. This guy invented the computer. Why are we not learning about him?
Yeah.
Why are we having these other people who have debatable contributions? And why are we not championing people who actually did something concrete and important for kids? And it's not that they should be celebrated because they're gay.
Right.
They did something celebratory. And by the way, they also happen to be gay.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just they push and bring in certain people that I guess support and help push their narrative and their political agendas. You made a valid point. It's not because, this person's a gay person, this person's a lesbian. Why don't we look at what they've accomplished? How have they contributed positively? What changes have they made? And let's talk about that. you know? But I feel like that kind of is a slippery slope as well, because when it comes to elementary school level, where the child is the first time being introduced to the word gay or lesbian, it has created this situation where it's not just mentioned or whatever it is, it's used as an excuse to go into different topics. So it's not just, hey, we're going to talk about this person who is a mathematician. They are very excellent. They did this. They accomplished that. Here's all the history in regards to their accomplishments and who they were.
And by the way, he slept with men.
Yeah. And he was gay. And then, you know, a
What
5-year-old
business-
raised their hand. What does gay mean?
Right.
You know? And it's like, do we want to introduce that at such a young age? You know? And then how do we answer that kid?
Right.
Because there are teachers who say, oh, well, go ask your parents. And then the parent...
As they did in the past.
Yes.
Yep.
And then the parent might be like, well, why did you say that word anyway? And some parent might be like, oh, okay, I'll explain to them
Right.
what it is. So it depends on the parent, I would say. But it's kind of being used as an excuse to take the topic, and now all of a sudden we forgot about this mathematician.
Right.
We're just going to talk about, you know, gays and lesbians, so to speak. So that's where it gets frustrating. Like, are we really trying to teach them about, you know, people in that community that have done good, or are we trying to change the subject into talking about sexuality?
And it would be fine if these were high-functioning kids who are just demolishing their tests,
Right.
You know, right, with their test scores. But you have graduating high schoolers, only
Yeah.
24% of whom can
Right.
actually do basic math
Yeah.
when they graduate. So yes, what are you teaching? What are you prioritizing?
Yes, the priorities is what's most important.
So as far as priorities coming up, so what would you like people to know about? What events do you have planned? What do you want them to look out for?
Keep up with the website and my Instagram page. I will be posting where I'm holding fundraisers, and I'm actually, even regardless of my campaign, I actually try to also keep parents informed of how they can get involved in their schools and in their children's educational life. There's different ways you can get involved, and there's whether it's volunteer, whether it's join the school site council, whether it's participate at board meetings.
And can you tell people where they can find you on social media channels on the World Wide Web?
Yes, my Instagram is Aneta Karpakian. No space, no underscore. And my website is aneta4GUSD.com.
Okay.
ANETA.
Yes, ANETA, not ANITA. And you've been enjoying Enough Talk, where we get real about what's happening in California and beyond. I'm Alex Balekian. Thank you to Aneta Karpakian
Thank you.
for joining me. Please don't forget to like, subscribe, leave us a review, and share this episode with your friends, your families, and your frenemies.
Definitely the frenemies.
Stay safe out there. Be engaged. Remember to register to vote, and we will catch you next time.